Hello everyone, welcome back to my studio. It's been a while since I posted a video. I've been busy this summer doing a lot of craft sales and that sort of thing, and I have also, it was way too warm in my office to do any work. But I wanted to show you something new that I have been trying, and I drew these animals. There's bees and butterflies and all kinds of things like that I drew, and I made them into these cutouts. And now these are just they're made out of cardstock so that they can be glued onto things easily. And I do sell these through my Etsy store, and I'll put a link to the Etsy store in the description. I do have a new Etsy store since my last video, which is exciting. And so I have quite a few things on there now. I'm slowly adding more things as I go, but so check that out. The link will be in the description. So yeah, so I've got these here, but what I was doing is I was making this journal for my daughter. So it's going to be kind of a vintage, it's going to be sort of a vintage, sort of a, what did she call it? Dark academia journal. So far I just have this part, but I wanted to, because a lot of dark academia stuff that I could find has these drawings that are like, look like botanical drawings and animal drawings and stuff like that from old textbooks from like the 1800s and stuff. But when I was looking at it, that's why I originally drew these. So I wanted to put something on the cover, but when I was looking at it, it was like, this is way too white. Like it doesn't look old enough for this style of a journal. And so I thought, I mean, one option obviously would be to print it on colored cardstock. You can get those cardstock that is like kind of a brown color or whatever. That's one option. But I thought, what are some other interesting ways of making this look a little bit more aged? So what I am going to show you is a few different methods that I found. So this one here, I'm not actually going to show you how I did this, but I'll tell you. So this one here, all I did is when I was tea dyeing my paper, I basically have a baking pan on the stove, and well, the stove is where I tea dye it. It's not that it's heated on there, but I just have a baking pan sitting there with tea in it, and then I put my paper in, and then I pull it out and everything. And what I did is I just took a paper that had a bunch of these on it, and I put that in the tea water, and that allowed it, that tea dyed the paper behind the picture. Now it does, I don't know if you can see here, I'll compare it to this one here. It does cause the lines to be a lot lighter because the ink from the printer does smudge a little bit. But I mean, you're going for an old look, so that's not a huge problem. So that's one of the options, but that one was one that took quite a bit of time, so I'm not going to show it to you. I will show you how I did this one here and how I did this one here, and then a couple other ideas. So let's get started. So the first one I want to show you is actually, I am going to do a coffee dye on one of these. And for that, I'm actually going to, this will show you kind of how I do the tea dye as well. But in this case, I have it already cut out, and I have some old coffee here. And I just have a little lid from a cottage cheese container. And I'm just going to do a little coffee dye while we do this stuff. So I'm just going to pour that coffee right on there and let it sit. Just let it sit in that while we do some of these other methods. And then we'll look at it after. Now the coffee dyeing is probably going to make it darker than this tea dye, just by the nature of coffee. So we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. Should be interesting. Okay. So then I'm going to show you how I did. Let's show you how I did this one. So I'm going to do this one with, I think, yeah, let's do it on this one. So this here is actually just done with Distress ink. So what I did is I have this, it's the Ranger Tim Holtz Distress ink. This is the vintage photo one, which is one of my favorite ones. And I have one of these applicators for it. And so this stuff, you can get it on Amazon. I'll put a link to this in the description. I really love this one. I do have a couple other ones. I need to get more, but right now I just have a couple other ones, a green one and a yellow one. But this vintage photo one is actually my favorite. So what I'm going to do is this. Now, I like to, because you can get some cool patterns from it, I like to take a regular piece of paper and just set it down here, because you'll get, well, you'll see in a minute here. Okay, I'm just going to do this right in the center of the paper. So I take my applicator and I get lots of ink on it. And then I just start from the center and I start pushing it out like this. And make sure it goes right out over the edge. And if I don't move this too much, it'll give a cool pattern on the paper too. That you can then use later for other things. And you can do some areas darker than others, and it's all up to you. And you see when you take it off, now I have kind of a cool butterfly pattern that I could use on something else. So that's just another, you know, how you never want to waste anything. So I'll just put that aside and I can use it on something else. But you see now I have this, and I'm actually going to go and just darken up the edges a little bit more. And this looks much more vintage. And because I put darker areas some places and lighter areas some places too, it looks a little bit more naturally aged versus versus having been aged through artificial means like this. So that's one method, and that one is a super easy, simple method. It all just depends on the look that you're going for. And tell me in the comments which of these you like the best, because I'm trying to decide yet which one I like the best. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two examples of this one. So now what I did for this one is, this is just tea bag decoupage. So I'm going to take, let's just take this is an old file folder. Use this to keep the stuff from getting all over my table. Now, what I do is when I'm tea dyeing things, I keep all the tea bags. I empty them out, and then I can use them for stuff like this. So I have two different kinds here. I have some that got really dark, and so I'm going to show you what that looks like if I use these really dark ones. And then I have some that are really light, so they're just vaguely tea colored. So we'll do a couple, or we'll do the other one with just those really light ones and see what the difference is. Here's another really dark one. Yeah, so I've got quite a variety of tea bags, and it all depends on, I find the darker ones are the ones that usually I've made my tea stained paper using those ones, because I make it really, really strong, and then I let it sit for a few days as I dye paper over the course of a few days. Whereas these really light ones generally were made when I was making my homemade iced tea, and so it only sat in the tea for a few hours, and the water wasn't quite as hot either, because I use water from my water machine instead of boiling it like I do for when I'm making the tea. So I'll show you. So let's do the darker tea bags on this one. So what I like to do, I use my Mod Podge, which you all have seen me use lots of times. You can use just, I know some people will use like just like a white glue with some water in it to make it more liquid. I like Mod Podge. It works really well for me. So I'm going to open that up, and I'll have a link in the description to, there we go. I'll have a link in the description to the Mod Podge as well. So I take that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these tea bags, and I'm going to actually take this outer edge off. I don't know if you can see that properly there, how there's this thick edge. Now, not all tea bags might have this. Mine happen to, because they're just cheap tea bags. But I'm just going to pull that off so that it doesn't have that thick line that makes it definitely look like a tea bag. So I'm going to just pull that off. It doesn't matter if you get some tea on here too, it just, some tea spatter, it just helps with the stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to just decoupage this on there. So now I have to figure out how much of this I need. So I'm going to need a couple of those. Maybe I'll do this one as well. And that should be enough to cover the whole thing. Yes. Okay. So then I'll show you here what I do is I have a paintbrush. This is an old paintbrush that I just use for this kind of thing. So some paper towel. I'm going to take this old paintbrush that I use, and I'm going to start by just putting some Mod Podge on the surface here. And then I'm going to stick this tea bag on it. And then I'm going to go over the top of it again with the Mod Podge. Now Mod Podge does dry clear, so it doesn't matter how much you put on, it will dry clear. I try and pick it up every now and then so that it doesn't get stuck to my paper down here. But I mean, if it does, it just comes off. The one thing that I found that helps it look nicer too is if you can keep it from crossing over each other, because here you can see this piece is over top of another piece, so it looks darker there. So that if that's the look that you like, you can go with that. I try and kind of keep them from touching each other too much, like just have it kind of butt up to each other. I don't want it to look like, I want to make sure I get that far enough over so it covers everything. I don't want it to look like it's two tea bags stuck on there together, if you know what I mean. Now here, you'll see I have on these spots where I have these ends, I have a couple little pieces sticking out, so I can take little bits of tea bag and just stick those on there to make sure that it's all covered. And same thing with right here. Just want to make sure that that's all covered. Okay. This one is a little bit messy, but I just really like the way that it looks. That's why I wanted to show it to you. It's a little different, but I just really like the way this one looks. Let's see. Why don't we take something darker like this one, I think. You can also do it this way, but then you still have to get this outer layer off. You don't want it to look like a tea bag. You want it to look aged. Okay, so then you put that one right there. You are going to have some overlap, like it's really hard to not have overlap. But I mean, it'll look all different too, depending on how dirty your tea bag is and all that kind of stuff. And let's just grab a piece of this to put on his feet. Okay, so then after that's all on there and Mod Podge together, then I'm just going to lift it up off of there. Okay. Being very careful not to rip it. There we go. And I'm just going to set that aside to dry. I'll just set it right there. Meanwhile, I'm going to show you what it would look like if we used the lighter tea bags. So I'm going to find some that are very light compared to those other ones. Let's see. Like this one here. This is really light compared to that other one I was using. So I'm going to try this one, and we'll just see what this looks like. I haven't actually tried with these light tea bags. I've only used the really dark tea bags. So my whole office smells like coffee now because of that coffee staining going on beside me. Now this one actually came apart quite nicely, and it'll cover pretty much the whole thing here. Except I am going to have to separate it because otherwise it'll have that ridge in the center. Okay, so let's do this little guy. I'm going to take that one and set it aside as well. So then what I just have to do now is I have to wait for those two to dry, and then once they're dry, I'll come around and I will cut all the excess off, and I will let this little guy sit in here for a little longer. I think I'm going to flip him over so that he gets good and stained. And then once he's done, we'll take him out of there too, let him dry, and take a look at all of the results. So everyone, we are back, and it's actually the next day because I decided to let these dry overnight. So I'll show them to you now. This is the one that I did in the coffee, and you'll notice something similar to the one I did in the tea is that the lines get much or the ink wants to come off. So, and it didn't make it any darker really. I mean, I didn't leave it in like more than about an hour, but you can see if I left it in any longer, you'd lose more of that, more of the lines on it. So I'm not real fond of this method, and I don't know, it's weird. I don't know if it's because the way it printed, but it's like the ink came off a section of it. Like it's not even, yeah, I don't know. So I'm not overly fond of that method. I probably won't use that again. So I'll show you what I do with these now. So these are the two that I did the tea bags on. And so then what I just do is I turn it over like this so you can see the back of it. And you can either just like try and gently rip this off, but I don't like to do that because I run the risk of ripping the tea bag or the thing. So I just cut it like this. So I'll probably speed through this, but yeah, I just follow and like cut it off of here. Let's have a look at how these turned out. So there's that little guy, and there's that little guy. So you can see it gives you quite a different look to the two of them. Here, I'll put a blank piece of paper or something down here so you can see them better. So yeah, it gives quite a, using the super light tea bags versus using the dirty tea bags does give it quite a different look. And then you can see there's this one here, which is the one where I use the ink, and then there's the tea and the coffee. So once again, I think the tea and the coffee I probably wouldn't use very often, just because the ink gets quite, it starts to come off. This one here I actually kind of like the best. Here's the butter, or here's the bee one that I did with that. And that's actually the easiest one. It's just with the ink, as you have a little bit more control over, you know, how it looks and everything, and it's just super easy. These ones here, I think, depending on what look you're going for, if you want to look for go for this super grungy look, that's perfect. This one here is a little less on the grungy side, but like I said, you have a little less control over it. But if you want something like a little lighter and maybe not so, you know, brown as these ones. But if you look at my, so now here on my journal that I'm making, if I was to put something on the front like that, that would look a lot better than that white. I'm going to probably use one of these in like a collage on the front. Or, like I say, you got the real grungy one. Kind of see how that would look, and it's not standing out that stark white on something that's supposed to be more vintagey and old looking. You know, even that one looks better. And then, like I say, these ones here too. I mean, it definitely looks better. And I mean, if I was using it in a collage, it probably wouldn't matter that the color is kind of off on it. But like, again, I don't like the way the ink comes off when you soak it. So I think I would definitely probably not do those methods. But these other two, I mean, these are a lot more work, but it gives you a completely different look than these ones. So anyways, I hope that was a fun little video for you, and I hope it gives you some ideas on how to make things look a little bit more vintage and grubby. And I'll have a link in the description to where you can buy these little cutouts of mine. These are all hand drawn, and then I scan them in. They're done with ink, and then I scan them into the computer and can print them off on various sizes, as you can see here. And then I actually, when I make them for my Etsy store, I actually hand cut them out. So it's a fair bit of work, but I think it makes them quite nice. So yeah, I'll put a link to where you can get those on my Etsy store. And I have a bunch of different butterflies, moths. I've got some dragonflies, bees, quite a few different things now on there. I actually have a fish that I'm going to be putting up before too long as well. So I've been trying to do these like the vintage, like 1700s, you know, textbook type drawings with the ink and hyper detail. So anyways, yeah, I will put that link in the description, and let me know which of these you prefer, and if you've ever tried anything else different for making your collage items look a little bit more vintage. And I hope you had a wonderful time, and I will see you on the next video.